competition debrief coming up. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you don't know me, I'm Jay, Master Barista, Coffee Roaster, Green Buyer, International Judge, and owner of Spro Coffee here in Baltimore, Maryland. And this channel is all about coffee and the people in the industry from all around the world. This past weekend, the United States Coffee Championships qualifying rounds were held here in Baltimore. These competitions seed competitors into their respective national championships that are going to be held in Portland, Oregon in April. The qualifiers that were being held were for roasters, latte art, cup tasters, coffee and good spirits, brewer's cup, and barista. And I ended up registering to compete in the Barista qualifiers. Those of you who follow the channel may be like, wait a minute, you're competing? How is that possible? Certainly some of my friends ask me the very same thing. If you've been following this channel, you know that I'm a volunteer representative of World Coffee Events, the organization that stages the World Coffee Championships. In this role, I work with different nations to help them stage their national championships that produce a national champion that will go forward to the World Championships to compete for their nation and the title of World Champion. In a nutshell, no. The time that a conflict of interest would occur is if I were to compete in a national level championship of a category that I would have judged. For example, I was the World Coffee Events representative for the Saudi Arabian Barista Championship in December. This means that I could not compete and potentially win the US Championships because ostensibly this would give me a competitive advantage since I know the performance of the Saudi champion or any other champions that I may have overseen throughout the year. So because the qualifying round is a tier below the nationals, there is no conflict. Because there's so many people that want to compete in the United States, the US has tiers of advancement, starting with preliminaries that are held in different parts of the country, then regional qualifiers that feed to the national championship. That champion moves on to the world. So in the Barista qualifiers, the difference between the qualifiers and the nationals is that the qualifiers are an abbreviated format, meaning that the competitor only has to produce 2 flights of drinks, espresso and a signature drink of their own creation. These drinks are served to 4 sensory judges with a limit of 10 minutes. This is opposed to 3 drinks in 15 minutes for the national championships. For this competition, there are 8 judges, 2 technical, 4 sensory, 1 shadow, and 1 head judge. The technical judges observe and record the competitors' actions. The sensory judges taste and record the beverages. The shadow makes a record of whatever has been said, and the head judge oversees them all. The unique aspect of the qualifying round is that only 2 of the sensory judges' scores count towards the final score. The other 2 positions on that sensory panel are reserved for what they call guest judges, either judges that are in training or perhaps people from the audience that they want to get to give them the flavor and experience of the competition. But those 2 position scores do not count. More on that a little bit later. Now, the total possible score for this competition is 360 points. Each of the technical judges have 49 points on their score sheet, and each of the sensory judges have 131 points. So that gives you a total of 360. Now, to give you an idea of how I personally did, my score at the end of the day was 201 points, or 55.8% of the potential score. The qualifiers means that the top 18 people in the competition will get a spot to compete in the nationals. So I was pretty far down at 16th place. In the 18th place, that person got 195 points, or 54.2% of the potential of the possible points. Compare that to the number 1 position who got 336 points, or 93.3% of the total available points. Now, part of the reason we're making these videos is so that people can learn and understand the competitions better, as well as find a better approach. So if you're a competitor and you're willing to share your score sheets with me for future videos, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. It's a little bit crazy. I mean, I am a seated judge. I've been judging now for 15 years or so. I did start out my career as a competitor. So when I started in coffee, I was a competitor in the United States Barista Championship from 2004 to 2009. And those were great times. I really enjoyed it, made a lot of friends, really helped to meet people across the industry. And it was really a great time of, having fun with different types of drinks and different types of innovations. Being a judge has been very rewarding because I get to travel the world and meet competitors and other judges and get to work with them and build hopefully a continually improving world of coffee out there. One of the important things for me is that as a judge, I don't want to forget what it's like to sit on the other side of the table. As much as we may look at the rules, we may look at our score sheets, and we think that we have a grasp of things, it's very different, right? There's so many things that were happening during the competition that I had maybe forgotten about, or maybe hadn't really, thought too much about as a judge. And so this just kind of helps me to get back into the frame, really start to, have a little bit more empathy for what competitors face. And, I think it's just a better position to be in as a judge because you have a greater understanding of the competition that you're overseeing. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it. What were some of the problems you faced as a competitor? Well, the first thing for me is that there's always the question of time to practice. Like, in order to be really at the top of the game, you must take the time to practice. You must really have everything dialed in and drilled down, rehearsed over and over again. You always want to have your script done. You want to say everything that you want to say, and you want to be well rehearsed. And so, because of the way that I have approached it, and also registering a little bit later in the game, I just didn't have enough time to really put heavy duty time into it. A lot of the competitors that are in the top tier of the competition, they've been practicing for many, many months, way before registration ever became available. Me, once registration was available and I got a spot, that's when I started to think about, what are we going to do? How are we going to put it together? So that, of course, comes as a natural disadvantage. If you want to excel, you really need to spend a long time preparing, really getting your mind in gear, thinking about what you're going to do, practicing, executing, step by step, working it all out. It also helps if you can get the equipment that you're actually going to use. So for the competition, we used 3 Group Black Eagles from Victoria Arduino. We used the E80 Malkonig, and there's also the bentwood grinder that was available to you. I personally did not use the bentwood because I wasn't comfortable using it. I wasn't familiar with the operation, and I didn't want to have to learn a whole new grinding system the day before the competition. So I went with the E80 because it's the closest thing to what we use here at Spro. Very manual, very hands-on, and the E80 was as close as we could get to that. Now, first of all, the big difference was the E80 was really interesting, really easy to use. I was really happy to see when I got to the site how simple it was to adjust the time how simple it was to adjust the time dose as well as the actual grind setting. It's really quite simple. There's a lock mechanism in the back. You just click it 180 degrees, and then you can move the grind setting left or right. Really easy to use, really nice. I think it was coarser to the right, so the higher the number goes, the coarser it is. The lower the number is, the finer. For our coffee, we ended up with a setting, I think, of 8.7. Just write that down and just go back to it later. And 2.7 seconds for our dose, which gave us about 20 grams. I prefer a 21-gram dose here at Spro, and so that's really what we're going with. Also, we used our typical house espresso, so a lot of heavy body, cacao notes, some fruitiness. This particular one was showing us dry, dark cherry. When we were prototyping on the machine behind me, as you can see here, I've got a little La Valentina E61. I do have a La Marzocco Linea 2 group, but I just didn't set that up for it. And then we got a Mazzer major grinder, and that's what I was using to make the coffee. Plus, we're also using our house water, and our house water is actually filtered Baltimore tap water. And Baltimore has some of the best tap water in the United States. The water is super tasty here, super clean. Every time we've tested it, the water itself has only been 0.005 ppm outside of one parameter from the SCA's Gold Cup standard for water. But for the competition, they're using formulated water from Third Wave water. And what I've learned was that the Third Wave water combined with the Black Eagle, and probably also a combination with the E80 grind setting, produced a very different coffee. It was very, very different. So while we're here, we're getting thick, syrupy, heavy-bodied, long-lasting. We've got cacao. We've got a little bit of grapefruit brightness on the front, dry dark cherry. In the flavor profile, we've also got a lingering walnut finish. those were a bit different when we were testing it on the day of the competition with the third wave water on the Black Eagle. The Black Eagle, of course, it's a commercial machine. It's totally professional. It's got a great pump on it. So the moment you hit the go button, that stream starts to come down, right? It starts to come down almost immediately. Where on this one, it's a vibratory pump, so it takes some time for it to ramp up, right? And that's kind of changing the way that the espresso is produced. And, that's just something you just have to account for. You just got to play with it and learn it. So it was different. So the flavor was different. The third wave water affects the flavor of the coffee differently. So the coffee came out to be more citrus with candied orange. Still some of that cacao, got a little more caramel out of it, a little more molasses, sweetness, lingering walnut bitter finish. And that's kind of where it changed. So Isaiah Sheese and even Miguel Vicuñas, kind of tasted the coffee when we were working with it on the Black Eagle, and they kind of gave notes of that it was considered heavy thickness and body, but nowhere near as heavy as this. Like this to me is heavy and thick and rich, where the one that was coming out of the Black Eagle, much less heaviness compared to here, but still for them they thought it was heavy body. All right, very good. So you just kind of have to take your notes and then adjust, make your own notes that morning, and then let me rewind a little bit, so you understand what's going on here. Prior to your time to compete, you're given 20 minutes to come to the station, to pull shots, to make sure that you understand how the machine operates. You get a feel for the station. You can do whatever you want. It's a practice time. We spent all that time really pulling shots, trying to dial in the coffee. Super stressful to do it in that situation. You have 20 minutes to make a mess, do everything you want to do, and then also clean up. So you have to spend a couple minutes cleaning up, so you have to build that into your time. So that really does cut into your available time to make a mess and pull shots. But the thing is, you want to get in there and do whatever you need to do. We wanted to dial in the shots and really just get a feel for it. I ended up having 2 different batches of coffee, one roasted on January 6th, the other one roasted on January 23rd. At the time, it was January 29th. And, I tried the newer coffee. Didn't know if I really liked it. Went back to the older coffie, and we ended up staying with that one. And that's where we got a lot of the notes that I just shared with you. Then finally, when you get to the stage, you've got 10 minutes to set up your station for the actual presentation. And then you have 10 minutes to present, and then another 10 minutes after your presentation to tear all your stuff and get off the station. All of it goes really fast. So, when you're preparing yourself and you're doing your practices in the months leading up or weeks leading up to it, it seems like it could be a lot of time to do this, but it's really not. Let's go into the competition now and let's have a look at our score sheets. These are the score sheets that were given to me from the judges. Now, we do have some video to show you. Unfortunately, the Baltimore Convention Center is essentially one big, large concrete box, which means that the audio is just bouncing around. The audio is terrible, whether it was on, Rusty Obra was really kind enough to live stream the performance on his channel, live from Obra's kitchen. Like I said, we've got our score sheets here. We've got the head judge score sheet, technical, sensory, and sensory. For this competition, I had judges that I had never worked with or presented with before, and it was really great to meet them finally and get a chance to share a little bit of coffee with them. The head judge for the presentation was Barnaby Holmes, technical judge Jacob Hadman, technical judge Nick Talaferio, sensory judge Rachel Apple, and sensory judge Matt Calhoun. One of the things that I would like for all of you who are judges to look at these and consider the legibility of the score sheets. These judges have done an incredible job of writing everything clearly and giving as much information as possible in a way that's easy to follow. This is something that is really important that I try to get judges around the world to understand, is that what you want to be able to do is to have notes on your score sheets that are concise and clear enough so that the competitor can look at them at any other date. Most national championships will have sessions immediately following the announcements that allow the competitors to come and have a look at the score sheets, talk to their judges, and ask questions. But you know what? The reality is, like I tell people, that I tell both competitors and judges alike, at the end of the day, there's only one person that's truly happy, and that's the champion. That person won. Everybody else is in some state of being disappointed, dejected, depressed, or whatever, rightfully so. So you, as a judge, you want to make sure that you're writing as clear and as concise notes as you can, so that the competitor, like myself, can go home or come on the internet and look at the score sheets, read over them, see what they're being said, and have a good understanding of what the judge experienced. Now, one thing that you want to understand, those of you who may not be involved in the competition or even competitors, the role of the judge is to record what you or what the competitor is presenting, right? So as a competitor, we're presenting something. We have to present that, and the judge is only going to record that. They're only recording what you've given them. Nothing more, nothing less. And so that's why we encourage our judges to write really great notes so that that can be clear. So let's start off first with technical judges. Let's have a look here first at Jacob Hadman's score sheet. And, everybody, one thing to keep in mind is that as you see these score sheets, and you may see other people's score sheets, each judge has their own specific way of doing things that may or may not match with other judges. That's fine. Hopefully they've done it in a way that you can kind of understand and see through their words or their hieroglyphics what's exactly going on. All right, so at the very top, station evaluation at startup. This is a potential 6 points section. Clean working area at startup with clean cloth. So we're looking for a clean area. Everything's nice and tidy. There's no mess, smudges, no coffee grounds everywhere. Your cloths are all clean. So what are we looking here? He writes down, looking for grounds, Spro, H2O smudges. So he circles those. So I'm presuming that means there were grounds. There was some water drops, and there were some smudges somewhere, because he's circling them, and he didn't circle the espresso part. Okay, that's fine. Some grounds left by tamper. Okay, there it is. Small amount of H2O under the machine. Okay, that's fine. Fingerprints on group heads. Darn it, that's terrible. But he says it's clean overall. So for that, he gave me 5.5 points. And so that's excellent plus. So just half point off of perfect. And you really, if there are those things, grounds by the tamper, some smudges on the portafilter, that's to be expected. You have to give some kind of penalty for that. All right, so let's look at the next part. Part 2, espresso evaluation. Technical skills, flushes the group head. I did not flush the group head that first time. That's a mistake. So what that means is before you actually use the group head, you must flush it. Just give it a little click. How did I miss that? I don't know. Dry clean filter basket before dosing. Yes, okay, good. Acceptable spill waste when dosing and grinding. 5, excellent, very good. So what does that mean? So in the competition, we're looking to see how much spill wastage of coffee there is for that shot of espresso. We scale it basically per gram. So up to 1 gram, 5. Up to 2 grams, 4. Up to 3 grams, 3. 4 grams, 2. 5 grams, 1. Anything more than 5 grams, 0. So 5 means that I only had less than a gram of waste. That's a good thing. Consistent dosing and tamping, he gave me a 4. Very good. Wonder what's wrong. So let's go look at the hieroglyphics to the right. And as you can see, Jacob likes to use an overhead illustration of the portafilter, a side view of the basket, and looks like these hooks means, I'm going to presume that means some kind of tamping, right? And then SV, I don't know what SV means. And then dose. So he has this written dose, and then it's got a line through both of those. So that means that the dose is probably not the same. You could see the basket here. He's got a V in the top one. I guess that means like a check mark that's okay. Check mark on the portafilters. I'm presuming that means that they were clean on the inside. What we're looking for is in the portafilter, it's clean without any water, without any grounds left in it, okay? We want to see that to be clean. And I believe that the check marks here means that it was clean, and so that's a positive thing. Okay, so the next one, as you can see on the second one, he has it kind of shaded at an angle. That means that it was uneven in the basket. So the judge is supposed to try to find a way to look inside your basket to see if it's clean. And then after you've tamped, he's going to try to look at it again to see whether or not the coffee bed is level. In this one, he says that it was not level. So I guess it wasn't level. That would mean that it's inconsistent dosing and tamping, and that's fine. So that's why it's very good, just not anything better. The next category, cleans portafilters before insert. Yes. Insert immediate brew. Yes. Extraction time within 3-second variance. Yes, which is surprising because, you know what, here's the thing. Like, I'm not really paying attention that close to the time of the shot. So what I'm really looking for at the shot is the way the stream comes out of the portafilter. I'm looking at the stream flow. I'm also looking at the pooling of the crema inside the basket, inside the cup, to determine when to stop. Now, hopefully I've got it all dialed in so that the amount and everything is good enough so that it's always going to be relatively consistent. And I'm glad to see that here where it says within a 3-second variance, that's a good thing. All right, so for there we got, as you can see, we got 13 points in that section. Some of the notes he made was, he made a note that said, baskets very clean. Repose was a bit rushed, understandably. Temp was palm heavy. Oh, interesting. That's some interesting feedback. Now, what's he referring to? I did have a problem when I was pulling the shots. The first portafilter that I loaded, or the second portafilter, so I loaded 2 portafilters, right? 1 and then 2. Hit the button. I hit the second button, and I could have sworn I hit it correctly. I thought even the way the machine was operating, because you could kind of hear it, and the button illuminated that it was running, but nothing was happening. And I didn't really understand what was going on. Because I wasn't too familiar with the Black Eagle. So I was like, is the machine running? Did I not hit the button? I was thinking, if I have to hit the button again, then he's going to think that I don't understand how to operate the machine, which will give me lower points in station management. And I'm like, okay, I can't look like I don't know what I'm doing, even though I don't. So I just quickly made a third portafilter, because it's a 3-group, locked that in, hit the button, let it run. And that turned out to be fine. So he did say that turned out to be well. Now let's go quickly and look back at Nick Taliaferro's score sheet and see, let's catch up and make sure that they are the same. Now, one of the things about technical judges, because there are 2 of them, we do expect technical judges to have essentially the same scores on both score sheets, because the technical judges are observing the same thing. If one basket is dirty, then both judges should be the same. So let's look at her station evaluation at startup. 5.5, thank you very much. Water drops beneath the machine, on edge of table, otherwise very clean. Vessels and tray nicely set. Oh, thank you, very nice. All right, we're also looking, so we will see here that the scores are the same. 0, 1, 5, 4, 1, 1, 1. Great, also 13 points. And now the way that Nick does it, it's a little bit, she's got a little bit tighter of a style with her thing, but you can see that shot number 2 left, right shot number 1. She also uses some of the same illustrations, same style of illustration from the overhead of the portafilter side of the basket. Some of the comments that we're seeing here: dosing and tamping techniques, lead of swiping, large dose to center, then tamping caused excess waste to fall. Okay. So the way that I was swiping caused some of it to fall off the front end chat. Inconsistent, lacked accuracy. Well, here's the interesting thing. So, one of the things we don't necessarily, I think the inconsistent lack accuracy is an interesting comment, because, we are a competitive world that is used to competitors coming out and saying things like, I have 18 grams in, 36 grams out, and they're using scales. Now, I don't know how it is here in the United States, but worldwide, we're paying attention to the fact that we're making notes about it, right? So on both the sensory judges, and I'm sure the technical judges, if the competitor says, I'm using 18 in, 36 out, they're writing that down as a note, but no one's checking it and utilizing that as a point of accuracy, right? So you'll see competitors routinely like, okay, they've got 18 on their dry weight, but when they pull their shots, they could be 38, it could be 41. These are full gram, multi-gram variances. And if we're scoring acceptable dose and waste with 1 point per gram equivalency, theoretically, we should be doing that the same thing with dosage for shots. But we don't do that. We're not even recording the actual amount of coffee that is being dispensed. So I'm not sure if the lack of accuracy really is necessarily a fair evaluation. It is what it is. After first shot, did not pull replacement shot, was rushed in dosing and tamping. Oh yeah, replacement shot was going to be rushed in that. Tamp was consistently finger heavy and uneven in brew bed. That's going to happen when you're doing things manually instead of using all the different tools. I'm not a tool person. I do believe the craft is all about by the hand, but not a big deal. 13 points total out of 17. Good. All right, so moving on to the next one, signature beverage evaluation. We've got flushes the group head. I did not flush the group head. I guess I'm forgetting that completely during the competition. There's actually something that's this is why I said earlier that you want to practice. I am not a practice competitor. And it shows. It shows right here. When we're working in a cafe, we very much on our groove. We will flush the group head all the time. No problem. The problem is that you're under stress. You're under duress. You're trying to do so much in so little time. And since it's unrehearsed or not as well rehearsed as it could be, it's natural stresses, and sometimes you'll take shortcuts without even thinking about it. So I don't even remember not flushing the group head. So one more reason for you to take the time, if you really want to win, practice. So if you wanted to be in the competition, you should have been practicing months ago. All right, so flushes the group head, that's a 0. Dry clean filter basket before dosing, yes, thank you very much. One of the things that I tried to remember to do, which I didn't remember until I think the signature beverage round, was to show your portafilters, right? So if you want to just make it easier for the technical judges, show your portafilters. I even made a comment about it, I think, in the competition. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been meaning to show it to you. And I'll take them and just show the 2 portafilters to the technical judges. Makes their job easier, which can only be a positive thing for you as a competitor. All right. Acceptable spill dose waste when grinding dosing, 4.5. So, 5, the last one for the espresso round, 4.5 for this one. So there's a little more waste happening. Maybe get a little more out of control. Maybe I'm feeling a little more stressed. Again, this is why you're practicing. Consistent dosing and tamping, 5. Oh, good. I like to see 5. Makes me kind of happy. Cleans portafilters before insert, yes. Insert an immediate brew, no. Extraction temp within 3-second rinse, yes. For a guy that's still using his fingers to make espresso without scales and anything, there you go. All right, let's look at the comments. So from Nick's comments, let's see here. Tamping was again heavy to one side, either top. Oh, okay, so she's saying that I'm tamping too heavy. I get that. Very clean brew. Oh, very clean brew baskets throughout. Thanks for showing us directly. Thanks for showing us directly. That's a nice comment. All right, let's go back to Jacob and see what his comments have to say. As you can see, we've got his notes again. Uneven coffee bed in one, and both of them show that there's uneven coffee bed in one of them and even coffee bed in the other. So there is definitely some inconsistency there, probably based on just whatever my stress level was at that very moment that I was making that round. So he says creative and organized, grounds still. I guess that means there's still grounds. Wanted to put shells under group after it was already locked in. Waited to put shells under the group after it was already locked in. Does that mean that I did not do immediate insert and brew? Oh yeah, that's what it means. Okay. In that case, so here's the thing. So that immediate insert and brew means once you've locked in, so you put the portafilter in, you lock it in, the only thing your next motion should be is press that button to start. If you do anything else, you'll get a 0 there. And I do remember in that case, I locked it in and I also grabbed the tray with my other hand and then I pressed the button and I was like, even at that moment, I was like, there goes that point. All right, cool. Now let's move on to part 4, technical evaluation. 4.5 for station management, clean working area at end. 0 for clean portafilter spouts. You got to make sure that you're cleaning the portafilter spouts. I did not do that the whole time. General hygiene throughout presentation. Yes. Oh, that's a good thing because In previous years when I was competing, gosh, I had a lot of sweat and there's always that concern about picking up the wrong towel to wipe your brow. But evidently one of my friends was like, you didn't sweat this time. I was like, oh, all right. We'll go back to that later. Proper usage of cloths? Yes. Okay, very nice, very nice. And same thing on Nick's score sheet. Thank you very much, both of you. Cleaned up workstation, but still had grounds near grinder, water drops on tray, fingerprints, and a small espresso spill. Still a very good working station. Why, thank you. That's very kind. That's very kind. Yeah, and that's one thing. If you're really practicing, you'll remember that you want to take the extra time to clean. And I did have extra time. I made sure it was as clean as possible. I didn't even think about these things. These are little details that'll trip you up. These little details, a little bit of what? Grinds near the grinder, water drips on tray, fingerprints, and a small espresso spill. These are all things that added up to be essentially a 1.5 point deduction, right? Which is actually 3 points because it's across 2 score sheets. Yeah, there it is. This is why you get kicked out of the competitions. All right, well, let's see what Nick has to say on her score sheet. Overall setup did not aid in efficient workflow and created disjointed experience. Oh, yeah, well, I think I didn't really have a setup totally practiced, that's for sure. That's a problem. And the disjointed experience, yeah, because you know what, there it is. It goes back again to the lack of practice, the lack of active thought and preparation and practice prior to the event. Really, I never even did a run through before doing this. I just kind of had it all in the mind of this is what I'll do here, this is what I'll do there. That is not the way to win the competition. So I do not recommend that. You really want to take the time over months, if possible, to practice and do run-throughs. Really figure out, these are great comments, because really figure out where do you want each of your items on your station and practice so that everything is always smooth. You know exactly where they are and you can grab them at a moment. So think about the way you have your mise en place, the way your bar is set up in your own cafes. You can whip out 100 drinks in an hour because everything goes and you got it all worked out. Same thing with competition. You got to work that out as well. All right. Returned to machine station to wipe spills and dump waste, as well as flush group needs post shots, heads post shot. And flush group heads post shots, all before calling time. Cleaning was effective for machine and counter. However, some grinds remained, and two is Wayne's towels were disorganized. Oh yeah, and tools, wares, towels were disorganized. Yeah, again, it goes back to the practicing. I'm just kind of running on the fly. Okay, I need to clean, but I don't know exactly what I need to clean because I'm not necessarily looking at those small details because I'm a little bit of a panic because we're running out of time. We only have 10 minutes, and I know I had about 55 seconds left. So I kept asking Ben, the timer. I was like, hey, Ben, how much time? 30 seconds. How much time? 25 seconds. How much time? 15 seconds. How much time? 10 seconds. How much time? 5 time. Right? So I'm doing that because I'm not necessarily aware of the time. I don't have my own timer. That's a good thing to have your own timer, because there was no timer provided. In the nationals and the worlds, there's actually a digital timer that a competitor you can look at. But at this one, there wasn't. So you have to kind of have awareness. And one of the things that maybe a competitive barista that may not have read the rules completely might not know is that you as a competitor can ask the timekeeper the time at any point. They will tell you 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. But at any point in time, you can ask them for the time and they have to tell you, except for when you've gone over time. Then they won't tell you. And then you're just kind of you got to know, I'm over time, I got to stop. That's one thing I need you to understand. This is what I tell competitors around the world. If you reach 45 seconds into overtime, stop. No matter what you're doing, stop right there. So at the qualifying rounds, the limit is 10 minutes. In the national and the worlds, the time limit is 15 minutes. You can go 59 seconds overtime. Every second overtime that you run gives you a 1 point penalty until you reach 60 points in 16 minutes. Once you reach 11 in the qualifiers or 16 in the nationals and worlds, you will be disqualified outright. As I tell competitors, if you reach 15:45, no matter where you are in your presentation, no matter what you're doing, raise your hand and call time and stop. By the time you actually do that, you probably have a 50 or 55-point penalty. You can still potentially recover from that. I have seen competitors run over time in the preliminary rounds of their national championship and move on to the next round because they stopped. But if you actually go over time and into disqualification, you're done. You're done. There is no recovery. So please, as a competitor, the one thing that I would like for you to remember is if you run over time, you must stop at the 45-second mark. Just stop. Maybe you served half of your drinks. Maybe you served one of your last drinks. Stop. Yeah, you will be pretty beaten down by it, but you will still survive to perhaps move to the next round. And that's all you need to do. If you can just move to the next round, you still have a fighting chance to win. That's really one of the things that I try to emphasize the most to competitors that I oversee, that, hey, that's one of the keys, survival. All right, so let's look at the final comments here we are. See, look at this. If I look at Nick's thing, they have a key at the bottom. TH, thumb heavy, FH, finger heavy, PH, palm heavy, the shot drop. Oh, wow, these guys are really good. They're really watching a lot of details. I came up through the ranks as a sensory judge and not a technical judge, so honestly, I'm not as good as a technical judge as I am a sensory. But I got to say, impressive stuff here. Dosing waste, S for spill waste, T for total waste. Fantastic. She makes a comment here at the bottom. Thank you for a fun performance and a great attitude. Oh, that's very kind. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. And Jacob says, awesome job, Jay. Oh, thanks, man. Very fun performance. Love the way you presented the Sig Bev. Oh, and then thank you, I appreciate that. Then he also provides a key, espresso flow, spins, taps, settles, yes, no. Okay, make sure you look at the bottom of your score sheets when you're reviewing them to know they might have put a key. Okay. See, even in my role as a head judge, I learn new things every day. All right, let's move on to the sensory score sheets over the whole competition. Like I said before, there's actually 4 sensory judges that are tasting the drinks that you're preparing. The qualifying rounds is unique in that only 2 of those sensory judges' scores actually count towards your final score. The other 2 are just guest positions. And here's an interesting thing about this particular presentation that is incredibly unique, was that 2 of my friends sat in those guest chairs. Miguel Vicuña and Scott Connery, who are also volunteer representatives for World Coffee events. So we essentially do the same thing around the world. And it's unique in that this can never happen in any other place, in any other competition than what the conditions were at this one. And because these are non-scoring seats, they could sit in them even though we're all very close friends. And, of course, in a competition, you would never have one of your really close friends, a position to judge you, because, of course, conflict of interest. In this case, there's no conflict because their scores don't count. And you know what, to be honest with you, as much as we're all friends, they're highly critical of what I do. Especially Scott. He's not afraid to point out any kind of flaw that I may have in the way of my logic or what things that I'm doing in coffee. So I highly respect that and love those both guys to death. Unfortunately, they did not give me their score sheets like the U.S. Coffee Committee. I guess they don't give the guest judge score sheets. I wish I had them. Would love to have them. Be amazing to have them to read their comments verbatim. But, we were talking about this after the competition. We went out to dinner that night, and I was like, and of course, Scott gives me his breakdown, and I was like, so we're talking, I'm presuming we're talking 2s and 3s in scores for taste. And he's like, yeah, pretty much. So you're supposed to be giving me 5s. So our first judge today, sensory, is Rachel Apple. And again, like I said, the sensory judges, I'd never met them before, and it's really great to see, we meet new people and have fresh eyes on what we're doing. Introduction and coffee information. She writes down some things about Baltimore's water. I did talk about how the water here is really great. Top 5, aging challenge. And then she says, loved how welcome I felt to Baltimore and the passion for the industry. I struggled to connect local theme to the coffee, to general coffee info. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I struggled to connect that as well. I had no idea I just loved the idea of this drink. And the drink, if you're not familiar, was taking oyster shells, coating them with white chocolate, espresso, amarena cherry, a cheesy, salty foam, a little bit of bitters. Really, it's just more for me about just kind of a unique coffee experience without necessarily a strong story behind it. So I had this idea for a coffee drink, but I don't really have a story for it. Like the genesis of the drink really is with Juan Marie Arzak, who is the chef in San Sebastian, Spain. I attended a conference where he was speaking, and, I learned these techniques, and I was like, this is amazing. I need to go and do this. So there's no real connection to, whatever I was saying was just completely like conjuring it up, like I'm Harry Potter or something, a poor version of Harry Potter. That comment totally makes sense. Like, yeah. And so that's what you want to do. If you want to connect, whatever your story is, you want to have it worked out and really work that well. Again, goes back to lack of preparation, lack of taking the time to really, think things through and practice. You always want to practice, right? Oh, let's look at our fellow sensory judge, Matt Calhoun, and let's see what her comments are. Introduction coffee preparation, water quality, espresso 99, 70% washed, fired, I don't know, washed. Oh, yeah, 30% natural Honduras. Oh, yeah, there it is, Honduras. Could do way storage. Okay, nice. So we see that Mac's a little bit coy on the notes. That's all right. All right, let's move on into espresso evaluation part 1. Crema, yes or no? Yes, very nice. Yes, that was crema. Actually, the technical score sheets were saying that both shots for espresso were within 3 seconds of each other, which is great, especially since I had to abandon one of the shots that I was pulling and pull a third portafilter. So one of them, and I maybe it was the first pull, I thought was too long. Like, I didn't think they would be within 3 seconds. I thought the other one was the first one was too long. And so here's a strategy thing for if you're doing the qualifying rounds. If you've got these guest judges whose scores don't ultimately count, you give them the worst stuff, right? Because you want to give the best stuff to the judges that count, so you get the most points. So that first double shot that I thought was too long, I served those to Miguel and Scott because ultimately their scores don't count. So there it is. Sorry, guys. Crema was intact on both their drinks. As we can see here, yes on both. That's great. Now, this is something that I was trying to see, could I get away with talking? So the idea was to prepare the drinks and then talk and allow the coffee to cool a bit. And I did do that approach. So I did my opening, hello judges, blah, 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 served them some water, gave a little bit of preamble about the water or whatever, and the coffee a little bit, and then went to the machine, started making their drinks. Brought them back, kept talking about the coffee a little bit more. And then Ben, the scorekeeper, was like 5 minutes. So I'm like, oh, I'm halfway through. Please drink. So I don't know if that was enough time for it to cool down enough. Well, let's look at taste experience. Taste experience 3. That's a no. Well, it's okay. Here's the thing about competing is that when you see like the final score sheets of a lot of competitors at national levels, the actual taste scores are not much higher. 3.5, 4, 4.5, occasionally 5, almost never above 5. Here we are. Let's look at taste experience 0 to 6, 3 on both. Pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm pretty reasonably happy with that. Now, here's the part that's not so happy. Oh, interesting. So on Rachel's, we have accuracy of flavor descriptors. Now, what this category is about is me as a competitor, I'm going to tell you, the judge, what you're going to taste. I think in this case, I told them that they're going to have notes of cacao. They're going to have notes of blood orange. They're going to have candied orange, cacao, caramel, molasses sweetness with walnuts on the finish. So Rachel, 2.5 points. That's disappointing. That means that she did not get those flavors that I said. However, for Mac, she gave me a 4. Very good. Which means that she got quite a few of those. And so this is a good illustration here of we're dealing with one shot, right? And the way that it comes out, the separation of the spouts, that could easily be a reason for the difference in scores. Now, hopefully, as a competitor, you hope that it's not so separated so that the scores are that wide. 2.5 to 4, that's a pretty wide variance. As a head judge, if I saw these scores and I know that they're from the same portafilter, I'm going to ask the judge, hey, tell me a little bit more about your experience, just to make sure that they should be that far of a disparity. Meaning that, does that mean that one judge at 4 should come down, or is the judge at 2.5 should come up? Now, that's all going to depend on what they have written down, right, on their score sheets, and what they tell me as the head judge as to whether I will encourage them to go on either way. Or perhaps they have the reasons and they're like, yeah, it was very different. I was like, okay, no problem. So, for example, let's have a look at that now. Flavor calls: citrus, red orange, cacao, molasses, sweet, aftertaste, bitter. Aftertaste was low, sweetness was high, bitter was in the medium. Cedar, oh, she had some cedar, missing the blood orange. Baker's chocolate, I think that's what it says here. Quite sweet. Butter bitterness was noted, was not of quality. Oh, bitterness was not of quality. And powerful. It was powerful. And then the other notes are, while I got many of the calls were in the cup, but there was a lot of overlap. The calls, many were broad citrus. There was also a big woody note that wasn't called. Okay. Oh, woody note. Medium heavy body, smooth body. Finish was dry and lingering, and some bitterness. Okay. So 3 for tactile experience, 2 for accuracy of tactile descriptor. So this is what. So, and then let's compare here. 3 for tactile experience on Mac's score sheet, and then 2 for tactile descriptors for her sheet as well. So as we can see here, with the exception of the accuracy of flavor descriptors variance, they're both in line. And so that really should tell you that, okay, you need to work on explaining the tactile descriptors better and, really consider the tactile experience. Now, so here's the thing, the taste and tactile experience, like I said, the way that this machine versus the Black Eagle pulled the shots, very different. Also, the way the water impacts, completely different. So ideally, let's say for this competition, they're using Black Eagle and third wave water. Ideally, okay, you can't go, unless you're well-financed, you're not going to go out and buy a Black Eagle just for this competition. I mean, if you can, go for it. I say, if you can get the advantage, go for it as much as you can. But the cost of getting third wave water may not be too heavy. So if you can get third wave water, go grab some of that, put that in your machine and run with it. So that could be a big reason why there's a variance there. Let's see what Mac had to say. Red, orange, no. Citrus, yes. Cocoa, looks like that's a maybe. Molasses, yes. Caramel, baker's chocolate, nothing. Orange, stone fruit mist. Then, okay, hint. A little bit hard to read, but that's all right. Mere heavy, smooth, medium. Oh, sweet, acid, bitter, medium sweetness. I guess that means no acid, no bitter. Oh, no, maybe those are arrows. Oh, high acid, high bitter, medium weight. That means very dry for tea. And then finish is, I guess that means large and dry. Dominant, bitter. Oh, dominant, bitter, and acidity. I tasted high acidity, high bitters. The tactile, okay. Okay. Yeah. Here's the thing. So once you pull it, you really can't do anything about it. And this is actually where like I'll hear some people complain, hey, I bought this really expensive coffee. It's 94 plus. And how come it got such low scores? The truth is that you just don't really know. Like sometimes you make a mistake. Like your barista may have made a mistake when they were pulling it. They may have done something different because, the stress levels in performance at the competition is very different than when you're practicing. No matter how well practiced you are, once you finally come to the stage and do it, it's completely different. Anything can go wrong. Anything can change. You do as much as you can to mitigate those changes, but things still can change, and interpretations will vary depending on people's palates. That is part of the risk. That is part of the difficulty of the championship. And it's pretty much the same thing where you come in, people come into your shop and you give them a coffee and you give the other guy a coffee, and the one guy loves it, the other guy hates it. Tastes are different. We try to work around that for the competition, but sometimes it's very difficult to do that. I'm not saying that that's what's happening here. All I could say is, I don't feel that I was producing the coffee at the highest level, right? Because I just don't think that we were fully dialed in. We kind of had to go with what we had. We went with the coffee grind settings that we could figure out in the limited time available to us and try to create descriptives that worked around it. It's all a compromise. All right, let's moving on. Let's go to our part 2, signature beverage evaluation. And, here's something that, let's get this off the bat. Like, this is what Miguel said to me when we were walking around after their competition. He was like, I know what it's supposed to taste like, but you didn't tell us what it's supposed to taste like. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, what an idiot. What an idiot. I teach this to people all around the world. You must tell us what you're going to taste. I talk about this incessantly for accuracy of flavor descriptors. And here I am talking, and I was talking about the different aspects of it, like, we're using the white chocolate to help. The white chocolate isn't necessarily for the flavor of white chocolate, but more to smoothen out the experience of the espresso. Things like that. So I'm touching on it. I'm suggesting that I'm going to talk about the flavors, but at the end of the day, I didn't even say what flavors they're going to taste. I didn't talk about the cherry. I didn't talk about the cheese. I didn't talk about the saltiness. I mean, I mentioned that there's saltiness to give you the flavor of the ocean, but I didn't tell you anything. And he said that, I was like, oh, gosh, what kind of moron am I? Goodness. So, yes, so here's the first. Let's go first straight down to accuracy of flavor descriptors, the last category in the score sheet. If the competitor doesn't tell you, the judge, what you should expect to taste in the drink, it must be a 0 in this category. It's in the rules, black and white. It must be 0. So there it is, 0. How embarrassing is that? I'm a head judge. I didn't remember even the most basic tenet of what I tell people. That's going to reflect on the well-explained, introduced and prepared. Good, 3 for both of them. How could it be any more? No matter what kind of experience I may have given them, it can't be more than that, because I didn't tell you what you're going to taste. I'm missing a massive category of it. So don't be like me. Remember to do this. Again, all of this goes back to practicing. Write your script, practice it over and over again so that you hit all your points. Me, I'm just trying to think about, okay, these are the points I'd like to hit. I'm not going to write a script. I'm just going to tell you. This is what happens. All right, appealing presentation. Yes, that's nice to know. Functionality. Yes, very good to know. And what that means is that, does it look like you want to drink it? Functionality. Are you able to drink it? And so that was one of the things I was kind of concerned about with using oyster shells, was that, will you be able to, well, they think that they can do it. One of the critical things, though, was to make sure that they understood that consume it all at once, take it into your mouth, evaluate the flavors together, and then, swallow. Creativity and synergy coffee. So here's the part that I'm most disappointed about in the scores. 3, 5, and 3. How much more creative do people want? They did not work together. So here's the thing. So creativity, synergy, this is actually one of the more difficult things for both judges and competitors to truly understand. Synergy and creativity. First of all, creativity. This may be ego, but we're talking about coffee and oysters. How much more creative can that be? That, to me, that's like this. That should be 6. There should be no other question. So for it to be a 3, like I'm presuming 6 in creativity, but we get a 3, so that means synergy must be terrible, right? I don't know. We're going to read the notes and find out. But what are we saying? So creativity is about, well, how creative is it? And then how synergistic? How well do the flavors come together? Does the combination of the individual flavors form a greater whole because of the combination? So, for example, let's say you're a competitor and you come out and I'm like, judges, I'm here, I've got this drink, I'm taking my espresso, I'm mixing it with this beautiful cacao that I've sourced from the mountains of Borneo. I climbed there and I did it and I got this and I mashed it and blah, 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 and I'm mixing it here with this quantity and this percentage, and then I'm taking that, mixing that in with this dairy that I've pulled from this cow, and I used the udders and all of this, and now I'm going to shake it over ice. At the end of the day, it's coffee, chocolate, milk on ice. Synergistically, I bet that comes together awesomely, right? Like, who doesn't like a mocha, right? Like, a mocha is a great drink. We can say mocha is an excellent drink, but is it creative in today's world? No, because you can find it anywhere. I think that's the way to think about it. Creativity, synergy, they have to come together, and you kind of have to balance them. 3 for creativity, synergy, at 3, 5. I'm a little bit disappointed. I wish I was higher. That's what, for me, that's kind of like my Olympics. Like, how much creativity are they going to give me? Failure. All right, so taste experience, 3, good. Again, 3. At least it's, and 2, taste experience 2. What? 2? That's upsetting. But okay, but it's a taste experience 2. And taste experience is just taste experience. What is the balance of sweet, acid, bitters in the drink, right? Or sweet, salty, bitter, sorry. So, if we're saying 3.5 for creativity, synergy, we would have to presume the synergy of the ingredients wasn't working for that judge, for Mac, right? It wasn't working for her, which would be reflected in the 2 in this taste experience. So, there it is. There it is. All right, let's have a look at the notes. So in the notes, she says calls. So this is Rachel's. Calls, question mark. Yeah. I didn't tell you anything. Good God. What a moron. 301 oysters, amarena chair. So she's writing here the different ingredients. And then what else? She said coffee on the half shell. Oh, yeah, a terrible name, coffee on the half shell. I couldn't figure out a name. Coffee on the half shell, rubies and pearls, oysters and pearls. I finally went with coffee in the half shell as I was talking because I didn't have anything better. I was missing the connection to the specific coffee. Yes, I didn't tell you that. Why? And that's something that you as a competitor want to remember. Why are you using these ingredients with this coffee? Connect that. Tell us why. Also unclear on recipe volumes. Not a lot of explanation of flavors. Yeah, you know what? I know all this, but I just didn't tell you this. So this is something for your competitor. So you make that connection as why are you using these ingredients with this coffee? Now, why am I using this? Why am I using these ingredients? The idea of the drink supersedes everything else in this particular case. I like the idea of having this oyster shell that you can consume from. So I'm trying to find components that will be complementary to the coffee. The white chocolate is relatively benign and just offering some smoothness to smoothen out the coffee. Now, why the amarena cherry? Because I noticed when we were testing it here, there were some dark cherry notes. I wanted to complement that for the espresso. It's probably not as working as well because the coffee does taste differently on those machines with that water. So there could be disconnect there. And then, the cheesy foam, I just thought those were kind of neat, interesting flavor components. Now, there's no real, I didn't really think of how to connect all that together. And as a competitor, you want to consider how do you connect all that together so that, your judges are very clear. And what Rachel here is saying is perfectly, totally legitimate. I was missing the connection to this specific coffee. Of course, I don't even have one myself. Also unclear on recipe volumes. Not a lot of explanation. Okay, let's go back to that. Also unclear on recipe volumes. Yeah, that's something that I didn't really talk about. Actually, it's part of the problem with my preparation was that I didn't quite memorize all of the details that I should have done. So I'm taking the shell and I'm tempering white chocolate, and I'm using that tempered white chocolate to coat the shell and letting it dry. I should explain that, right? I didn't explain that. I temper the chocolate to 100 degrees, and for each of those, I use 50 grams of chocolate. Now, the reality is I could save 50 grams of chocolate, and I could weigh it and actually prove that in my notes. You should tell them that level of detail. I was using Noel 30% cocoa butter, white chocolate. Get more specific. Remember those things. Put these in your script. 1 shot of espresso in each of the shells. Talk about those flavors. I was taking the amarena cherries, and the nice thing about the amarena cherries, and this is something that I don't think I touched on, they're wild cherries preserved in their own natural syrup. The syrup is made in conjunction with their natural juices. The wild cherries are relatively uniform in size, and I used a demi-tasse spoon to hold the cherry and a little bit of syrup that I was adding to the mix. You should be more specific. Like I should be telling them, I could just tell them a demi-tasse or maybe break it down to grams or break it down to volume. So let's say I want to put amarena. I want to take one of the cherries along with 10 grams of the syrup. That would give them more detail. For the cheese foam, you should be telling them how you can make that foam. Like the idea behind the well-explained and introduced and prepared is that you're telling the judges how to make the drink. And that would be great. And so I didn't really do any of that. So also unclear in recipe volumes. Yeah, I didn't give any of that information. Not a lot of explanation of flavors and how they play with the coffee. Yeah, that's why there's 0 in accuracy flavor descriptors. Highly creative concept. No explicit SIGBEV flavor calls. Yeah, there no explicit SIGBEV calls. That just crushes you. That just crushes it all because honestly, these are mistakes that should not happen because if you've prepared well enough, thoughtful enough, that will not happen to you. So use my example as what not to do. All right, so for Mac, she writes toasted cheese forward. Tasted cheese forward. Okay, heavy texture, foam forward, less coffee flavor, and off balance. No flavor descriptors called. Oh yeah, that makes sense why you would give me a 2 on your taste experience. Now, I can't really recall the way that her shot was prepared, so I can't think of it could have been unbalanced the way that the shot came out, and the method of adding the ingredients that I'm using is basically using spoons. So the amounts could vary between the two, could vary widely. Those are just some of the inherent things that, with more time and more practice and more thought, it's the thinking part that's the hardest. Those things can be mitigated to give more balance and equality between the servings. Signature Bev could have been so much better. Part 3, Barista Evaluation. Presentation Professionalism 3. Oh, really? 3? Just good? And Max says, Presentation Professionalism 3.5. Okay, a little bit better. Thank you, Mac. I appreciate that. Attention to detail, all accessory available. Rachel gives me a 5. Mac gives me a 4.5. What? 4.5? Appropriate apparel, 1. Okay, good. Appropriate apparel is the easiest. Dress nicely, but wear an apron. And actually, after this year, I think that'll change. So it's only good for 2022 rules. All right, let's see what Rachel says about barista evaluation. Sig Bev expectation setting didn't help me find what you were wanting me to find. Why chocolates on the table? Yeah, there it is. There's white chocolates on the table. Why chocolate on the table? I forgot to tell that. So I put these little chocolate hearts, and the idea was that I was going to tell them early on, since we're so close to Valentine's Day, I brought you some chocolates. Please feel free to take them with you after. I forgot to, actually, I said that to Scott and Miguel when we were hanging out later. Scott, in typical Scott fashion, he's like, and that's the detail you wanted to tell. Yeah, well, it's like, I forgot everything else. Why not forget that too? All right. Missing extraction details. Missing extraction details, great energy, customer service, no instructions on anywhere to put the espresso spoons. See, there's something that's missing again. There were these little tiny stainless steel cups that I put down for that purpose. And so here's something for you competitors. Give the judges a place to put the spoons. So during the competition, the judges must look at the espresso, and before they evaluate the espresso, they must stir it 3 times front to back, right? Now they have a dirty spoon. Where are they going to put it? I did put a stainless steel cup for them to put it in, but you must tell them that. Let them know. I mean, not every judge is going to know exactly what to do, or not every judges should not necessarily presume what they should be doing. Again, like the chocolate, I forgot to tell them what to do with the spoon and where to put it. I have a place for it. I just didn't tell them. This is why I don't win. All right, let's see what Max says. Max says, eye contact, high, stage persona, presence. I don't know if I can read that too. Comfortable. I think it says comfortable. Instructions were rogue. Oh, vague. I think I like the instructions were rogue better, though. Instructions are vague, but the high energy provided something ability. Comfortability. Okay, good. Very creative and captivating with the oyster. Okay. So now total impression, overall view of the presentation in correlation to taste scores, 3.5 for Rachel and 3 from Mac, which gives totals of 62.5 and 63.5 respectively. All right, there it is. Thank you both. I appreciate that. And then let's have a look here at the last one, the head judge score sheet, see if there's anything here. So the head judge was Barnaby Holmes. Evidently, this was his first time out as a head judge. I heard later that he was a little bit nervous not because of me, but because Scott and Miguel happened to be sitting on his panel. And, so what the head judge will do is that the head judge will oversee the judges. And after the presentation, the judges will all go into a private space and they'll discuss the scores. They'll discuss the scores, and the head judge is there to make sure that the scores are in line with the experience that the judges had and encourage them to either evolution up or down, depending on what they've recorded on their score sheets. And so he said he was a little bit nervous. He told me, I heard later, he was a little bit nervous because, he had 2 of the most senior judges in the world sitting on his panel. So he's like, oh, great, my first time out, and I've got these guys, and I can't look like I don't know what I'm doing. I get it. I've been in that position too, man. All right. So he says, so there's a couple sections here. Part 1, station evaluation. Startup, clean, great. Coffee information, 30% washed, 70% washed, 30% natural. No espresso recipe. Yes. Why not? Yeah, I'm not giving any recipes. It's all secret. It's secret. Which is why points go down. Spillage. So here, part 3, espresso evaluation. Spillage at grinder. Citrus, blood, cacao, bakers, tobaccos, caramel. Medium to full body, small, smooth. 30%, then he's going to signature beverage. So the head judge doesn't necessarily have to give a lot of details because the head judge is really watching everything else, right? Making sure that everything's in order. 30% cacao with chocolate flan, amaretto cherry, amaretto. It's hard to hear. Actually, it's really hard to hear. I can't. I'm surprised they could even hear. Salted cheese foam. How is it made? Question. Important question. I didn't tell you. Bitters. Spillage at the grinder at the very end. And within time frame of 10 minutes, yes. Total time of 9:55. And total score of 201 points. Right. All right. There it is. A complete breakdown of the score sheets from my presentation. And you know what? Am I happy with the score? From a standpoint of wanting to win and sweep it all, no, of course, I'm very disappointed in that respect. Is the score accurate? Do I think the score is accurate for what I presented? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I mean, there's definitely a lot of errors out there. Gosh. So use this. I hope you'll get this video as, what to look out for, what can go wrong, what you should not be doing, and what to, correct for your own presentations. And, I hope that this video will help you in that respect. If you're trying to campaign for, in your own national championship, wherever you are in the world, I hope this helps. That's really a big intention of these videos that we're putting on the channel about the competition, so that you have a better understanding of what's going on and how it all works, and perhaps how you might find a way to exploit the rules to your greatest potential. There's a recent discussion we had about disparity in competitions, and there can be no denying that there can be wide swaths of disparity between the highest ranking competitors that have tremendous amounts of resources and a lot of the others. But I firmly believe, based on my role as a head judge around the world, that anyone can win. Anyone can find a way to make these score sheets sing for them. Just keep in mind what we talked about here, about taste experience, descriptors, how to balance out your flavors, and how to, you want people to be able to taste your coffee in the way that you have told them to. Those of you who might be judges, I hope this helps you understand how to deliver better score sheets. Like, these are some great looking score sheets, I gotta say, well written. I'm having a little bit of difficulty reading some of them just because, it's so difficult to write so much detail in such a little time. And most importantly, in a legible manner. Like, if you look at some of my score sheets, even I can barely read them. I have to rewrite them half the time. Because here's the thing. So when you're a judge, you try to maintain eye contact as you're writing. So the more the competitor talks, you want to get those details because you're going to forget them if they wait. So you'll try to write some while you're engaging with the competitor in a pleasant and manner. And you really can't look down because you don't want to be rude, right? So you want to. So that's the difficult part. Now, if you're also a competitor, what you want to do is you want to find that timing, right? What is that timing? You want to give the information and then let them have time to write. Let the judges have time to write. I tried to do that in my presentation. So if you look at it, maybe you'll see that. But if you want to see a great example of that, go look at Anthony Douglas's finals performance in last year's WBC. Like, I watched that recently, and that guy is great. Like, he's talking, he's giving lots of information, he's giving the pertinent and important information, he's giving you recipes, he's giving you tasting notes, and then he's guiding you. He'll okay, let's go back to this signature drink, so that you know as a judge that, okay, we may be talking about espresso at the moment, I'm taking notes about espresso. The next thing he's about to tell us, now we go to signature drink, right? So that's so helpful. And then also, super importantly, Anthony's out there, he's giving you time to write. That is golden. Golden. Give your judges time to write. So watch Anthony Douglas. He's super well practiced. Like, he's super, super great in that respect. For those of you who are concerned about the disparity thing, forget all that about the fancy coffees. Listen to what he's saying. Listen to the descriptions. Watch the pacing, the timing, the delivery. He's so well practiced. He's super smooth. God, it was really great to watch. So I guess that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions about coffee, competitions, you're preparing for your competition, you need some advice, drop them in the comments below. I'm happy to try to answer them and give you as much insight as I possibly can. If you have any ideas for future videos, let me know that as well. I want to say thank you to Barnaby, Rachel, Mac, and Jacob, and Nick, as well as our shadow judge, and Ben, and my runner, and our MC, and everybody at the U.S. Coffee Championships Committee. Thank you all very much. Also to the guys at the WCE for not getting too upset with me competing here. And of course, my two dear good friends, Scott and Miguel, for all your support, and then all my other friends out there and all of you for watching. Really appreciate that. I did qualify to go to the Nationals. However, because I am a WCE rep, that would represent now a conflict of interest. And I will be declining my position in the Nationals in Portland. That gives another person an opportunity to go, and I'm very happy to see that. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to ask. And thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.